Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to National Action Network Saturday Action Rally. We are coming to you live from the House of Justice, but the House of Justice is down at the Sheraton Times Square Hotel because this is where the action has been since Wednesday, because we are in our national virtual and live convention. So we're coming to you live from the House of Justice, which is right here in the hotel at 7th Avenue. I want to welcome all of you with us on this Saturday morning, because if it's Saturday, this is where the action is. Our president and founder is the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. The chairman of our board is the Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson. I'm Attorney Michael Hardy. We'll be coming to you live from right here where the House of Justice is today at the Sheraton Times Square Hotel, and we're so pleased to be with you as, again, we have been celebrating our convention throughout the week. We have a great program this morning because we'll be hearing from many of the leaders of National Action Network and the activists in the organization from across the country. And it is Saturday, so of course it is our day where the second part of the program with Reverend Sharpton will be our Measuring the Movement, and then our Youth Day, where we will be cutting the ribbon for our Youth Day here at National Action Network, and you'll be hearing from many of the young people in the organization that are in the fight. So you want to call somebody, you want to tell them the action is on the air. The Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton is in the house and getting ready to come to you. Brothers and sisters, as Reverend Sharpton said, this year NAN celebrates a historic milestone, 30 years of continuing the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s fight for social justice. We thank you for your continued support throughout the decades and for being a part of our NAN family. Whether you are physically in New York or watching us virtually, you are a vital part of the commitment to justice and equality that we all strive for. Here's to the next 30 years and beyond. So brothers and sisters, you want to call somebody, tell them the action is on the air. The Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton is in the house and getting ready to come to you. But first up, brothers and sisters, will be one of our dynamic youth leaders. He is a minister. His name is Tyleek McMillan. He's the National Director of our Youth and College Division. Let's welcome him.
Thank you, Attorney Hardy. Good morning, National Action Network, and greetings to those who are watching us virtually. We're so excited for today. Today is our Youth and College Day. We're so excited to get the ribbon cut and hear from some of our young people. Our young people, we're so excited here at the National Action Network Youth and College Division, where our mission is to make policy and being involved the new norm, not the exception. And so we want to get your young people involved. If you are listening, I encourage you to go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and get your young folks signed up and get them involved. I encourage you, as I said, to go to the website and get them involved. I feel, it's a hopeful sign. It's a hopeful sign for us to be optimistic, but it's never to be complacent, because I understand that complacency is the enemy of accomplishment. And we still have so much yet to accomplish and still have so much yet to gain. It's great for us to have, a new president. It's great for us to have our first black woman as vice president. It's great for us to have a Congress, and it's great for us to have a Senate. But I understand that we cannot become complacent in this moment. We still have so far yet to go, and we still have so much yet to fight for. I'm clear, and I say this all the time, I'm clear that Medgar Evers was not murdered on his lawn in front of his children, in front of his wife by the Klansmen, so we can hold positions and not power. I'm clear that Fannie Lou Hamer did not say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, for us to wallow in places where they don't want us to be anyway. And I'm clear that Martin Luther King was not jailed in Alabama and knifed in his chest and shot down on a balcony in Memphis so we can bury our heads today. These things did not happen so we can seek position and not power. These things did not happen so we can be the Negro in charge of Negro affairs. But we still, as I said before, we have so far yet to go. We still have so far yet to accomplish. You know, all the time, Reverend Sharpton often says it's not about a generation that knows it all. It's also not about a generation that has all of the energy, but it is our synergy together that makes this moment possible. This is an intergenerational movement. This is an interracial movement, and we want to get you involved. I'm clear when I used to intern at the Capitol for the Black Caucus, and I remember having conversations with my great fraternity brother, rest his soul, Congressman John Lewis. And I had a conversation with him one time, and he told me, you know, we marched across the Edmunds Pettus Bridge, and they told us to go back. He said they told us to go back, but he said we can't afford to go back because we still have so much yet to go, and we cannot lose the momentum that we have gained. And I say to you, we cannot afford to go back, because our ancestors, we stand on the shoulders of sheroes and heroes whose names we know and names we do not know. And we have to continue to press towards the mark. I always reflect on this story about an elephant and a dog. An elephant and a dog became pregnant at the same time. And 3 months down the line, the dog and the elephant both became pregnant. And 3 months down the line, the dog gave birth to 6 puppies. And 9 months down the line, the dog gave birth to 6 more puppies. And the pattern continued on. And on the 18th month, the dog approached the elephant and questioning, are you sure? You sure that you are pregnant? And we became pregnant at the same time. I've given birth to 3 dozen puppies, and they are now grown. But then the elephant came back and told the dog, you do not understand what I am carrying. You do not understand that what I am carrying, when it hits the surface of the earth, people will yield in admiration. And I say that story to a lot of young people. A lot of young people get discouraged, and they get discouraged because, you know, when they walk in the room, they're counted out for who they are, or counted out for their voice, or counted out for their experience. And I say to you, when it hits the surface of the earth, when you use your voice, people shall yield in admiration. And so I tell you, when you keep on fighting, keep on pressing on, and together we can fight for this thing called justice. But it all comes together when each of us takes the mantle and does the good work. No justice, no peace.
All right, thank you, Minister Tyleek McMillan. You know, it's been a great week here at the Sheraton. Of course, we were pleased and privileged to have kick off the convention for us, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, also the Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, and the leader of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. It's just been a tremendous week here at the Sheraton, where we have been doing our convention both virtually and live. And one of the people that have worked to really make all of this happen and constantly works in our South Carolina region, and was on a panel yesterday with regard to diversity, and he really hit so many good points, and that's the Reverend Nelson Rivers. He's the Vice President of Religious Affairs for the National Action Network.
Good morning, beloved. Good morning, beloved. Good morning, beloved. No justice, no justice, no justice. Thank you so much to Reverend Al Sharpton, our founder and president, Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, our chairman of the board, all of the team that leads at the National Action Network, especially Attorney Hardy for his great work down through the years. I want to lift up the fact that now we need to recognize in 30 years we would not be where we are had not one person been able to keep his eyes on the prize. The Reverend Al Sharpton never lost focus on what it is we were trying to do, what it is that had to be done. And it's a model for many of us. I want to thank Minister Tyleek for lifting us up early this morning. But I tell all of us, both young, old, and somewhere in between, that there will be a time in your life, in your struggle, you have to be reminded, keep your eyes on the prize. This season that we're in, right after the resurrection of our Lord Jesus, he was confronted with dealing with his disciples, had to carry on the mission. And he called them together at a great fish fry after everything was said and done. And they didn't know who he was. And then later on, the one who had disappointed, the one who had turned away, the one who said, I'll never leave you, dog. I'm your ride or die. That very same one named Peter had turned his back on him 3 times. And Peter suffered. He knew I had to be held to account. But he thought he would get away with it. And so Jesus had a breakfast meeting, a breakfast workshop that morning. And he said to Peter, Peter, do you love me? And Peter said, you know I do. He said, well, feed my lambs. He said, Peter, do you love me? He said, you know I do. He said, feed my sheep. He said, Peter, do you love me? He said, you know I do. And Peter got frustrated, started acting like the old Peter was about to cuss. And you can always tell when somebody's caught in the wrong, they start cussing before they tell the truth. And so Peter then said that Jesus said, feed my sheep. And then Peter was confronted by this one thing you need to know. Sometimes failure is not the loss. Failure sometimes is preparation for success. Sometimes when you fail, you have to be prepared to succeed. And sometimes tomorrow the Lord has given a word unto me to be used at my church, and it's going to be what Natasha says, sometimes you're gracefully broken. And sometimes you understand that Peter had to be broken before he could be healed. Peter was faking it, trying to act like I didn't do anything wrong, that I did not disappoint. But Jesus said, Peter, I need to let you know I got to break you so I can make you. And so sometimes I need you to understand that sometimes what you think is failure is nothing more than preparation. Because all failure is not a penalty for what you did. Sometimes failure is preparation for the next level and for the next step. How do I know? Because Peter then turned, after trying to throw shade, he turned around and looked at John and said to Jesus, what about him, Lord? Why are you messing just with me? What about him? Didn't he disappoint you too? What about him? And then Jesus said this powerful thing. What is it to you that I would do whatever I want with him? That's not your business, Peter. Keep your eyes on the prize. Don't go hating on somebody else. Don't use other folks' problems to be your excuses. Stop looking at other folk and ask the question. Keep your eyes on the prize. What about you, Rivers? It doesn't matter what they did. What about you, Nelson? It doesn't matter what they did. God told Jesus to tell me, keep your eyes on the prize. We made it this far because Reverend Al Sharpton kept his eyes on the prize. He'd been criticized, but he kept on moving. Lied on, kept on moving. Didn't know how I'm going to make it some days, kept on moving because he learned early. It doesn't matter how long it takes. The question is, will you be there when it's all over? He kept his eyes on the prize. Good morning, no justice, no peace. The reason we're here and we'll be here because we got to keep our eyes on the prize.
All right, that's our Vice President of Religious Affairs in South Carolina. And I have to say that Reverend Rivers does so much, but we do want to also give thanks to his main assistant down in South Carolina, because she's been manning the COVID center to make sure, as Reverend Sharpton said, the one thing we all have in common is that we're all negative for the virus, and Trudy Grant has been the person that has led us through that, and we thank her for her work this week. Reverend Ron Saylor is the Southeast Regional Director, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's welcome.
Thank you, Attorney Hardy. Good morning to you. I want to bring greetings and extend my special appreciation to our founder, Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, our chairman, Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, to the board of NAN, and to all of you who are watching this morning. May God bless you. This has been a unique NAN convention in that it is the first convention we've been forced to hold in virtual space due to the ravaging damage of COVID-19. Not necessarily safe for us to gather here in New York. So the team has to be applauded for the first virtual convention NAN has ever had. And it has been one of the most informative, well-run, best organized conventions we've ever put together, because sometimes pressure forces you to be your very best self. And that's really the tension that our nation finds itself in. There is a pressure that is on all of us. And we know that whenever there is pressure on all of the nation, it's a vice grip on black people. When you look at what has happened with COVID-19, without a doubt and with beyond any question, African Americans have been brutalized by the impact of COVID-19 in our communities. That's something that we cannot necessarily control, but here's what we can control. We can control the fact that African American people in this country have been vaccinated at a rate almost 50% less than whites and other ethnicities. And our Hispanic brothers and sisters and other brown people have been vaccinated at a rate even less than that. That's something we can do something about. When you look at the fact that African American persons and people of color are more likely to not be able to have internet access to make appointments for COVID registration, more likely to find COVID vaccination sites in neighborhoods other than our own, more likely to not have transportation that's reliable to get to COVID site, and more likely to not be able to get time off work to be able to go take a vaccination anyway, all laying on top of the fact that there is still in our communities a skepticism and a skittishness related to taking a vaccine anyway. The point is, we got work to do. And I want to thank Reverend Al Sharpton. I want to thank the National Action Network for all of the work that we have done to make sure that people at least have access to the vaccine. Now, whether you choose to take it or not, and I hope you will, we ought to at least have access to it. And we need to make sure that African Americans and people of color around the country are able to be vaccinated at rates equal to whites everywhere. This is the work that we've been doing. And in the southeast region of the United States, we have chapters, NAN chapters, that have been on the forefront of this work. We honored Reverend R.B. Holmes and Reverend Don Tolliver from our Tallahassee, Florida chapter, who have made sure that 127 COVID vaccination sites have been placed in the Tallahassee area, because when they first started, they put them in Publix and Walgreens. Well, the problem is no Publix and Walgreens in the black neighborhoods. So people who believed in God and had enough faith to get up and do something fought and made sure that when they sat down, we had the opportunity to be vaccinated. We honor you, Reverend Holmes. We honor you, Reverend Sharpton. We honor you, Dr. Richardson. Our fight is not over yet, but when we sit down, it's going to look more equitable. The U.S. government, in my last observation, has spent $8 billion vaccinating American citizens against COVID-19. And with $8 billion with the B being spent, we have only vaccinated 8% of the African American population in our country. If you gave Al Sharpton $8 billion, every black person in America would have been vaccinated. All of our pets, cats, rats, and dogs would have too. So that's the next level of the fight. If you can't do it, I bet we can. God bless you. I love you. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Saylor. Right now, brothers and sisters, we're going to go all the way to the West Coast, to the great city of Los Angeles, for our Western Regional Director and also the head of our Los Angeles chapter, the Honorable Reverend Jonathan Mosley.
No justice? No justice. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? We're very thankful and grateful this morning to be on such a momentous occasion with this virtual, something that's different, but it also lets us know that our visionary, who we give honor to, the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, and to our chairman, Reverend W. Franklin Richardson, and to most illustrious attorney Michael Hardy, and to those that are here today. It is my prayer that after what we have been given in these days, that we don't sit on it, that we take these instruments that have been provided for us, the tools, the way that we have to now engage in this warfare against injustice and unrighteousness. We've been given a great amount of information. Information is no good if it's not moving in a proper direction. Without having to say anything more, it is my prayer, going back to the West Coast, going back to Los Angeles, in which we thank God again for our illustrious leader, Dr. Sharpton, for having a vision to not just be located in one area, but that we have to spread this across this land. We've been fighting on many fronts, including during the time of COVID, giving out food, free food to the community. And now we are partnering with churches and different entities within the black community to make sure that our people have access to this vaccine. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we will reap if we faint not. Thank you so very much. God bless you, and keep hope alive.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Mosley. We want to bring to you now our dear sister Felicia Simmons. She's from Asbury Park and heads up one of the New Jersey chapters there.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. We greet you from where I'm from, Asbury Park, New Jersey. It's greetings from the shore. And I just want to talk about this experience of being part of National Action Network. This experience, coming from the most gentrified city in Asbury Park, where I see my black population decrease by 7%, gave me the tools to sit here and fight for my community. On the ballot, we took a referendum for rent control that they've been fighting since the 70 riots, where they tore down my city to never to be rebuilt 50 years later. For rent control, they've been fighting. We taken to the ballot, we had 10,000 people headed by the National Action Network to come to our shores, and the only thing that got tore down was the shackles of oppression from the Jersey Shore. That's the only thing that got tore down. 10,000 people, and we all came in peace, and we all left there where we tore down secret task force from the police. We tore down oppression. That's what we tore down. The tools that I gained from National Action Network has inspired me. A place where a single black mother like myself can take to the streets and cause the power to listen to me. That's what I got for Sharpton. We got to sit back and we got to say that it's for the people, by the people, and with the people. I am proud to say that I am the president of the Monmouth County, Ocean County National Action Network, the greater Asbury Park area, because we take it to the streets. And I am proud to be part of the National Action Network, where we stand beside the Honorable Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton and his fight. We have to remember that everything is local, from the bottom up. He said, Reverend Al said, we have to, go all the way down, but I said we go from the bottom up when we go down that ballot, because it matters. It matters from the school board. It matters from the city council. It matters from the commissioner. It matters from the assembly. It all matters, but what matters more is what you do with your voice and your vote. We have to get out there. We have to be inspired. This isn't a fight against white and black. It is a fight against righteousness and non-righteousness. We have to understand that we fight not the big people sitting in high spaces, but we fit that low spirit that travels abroad. That's what we're fighting here. And I'm going to say thank you. Thank you to National Action Network. Thank you to my family members from across this nation that I got to see here. I want to say thank you for everybody at home that send me with prayers, because I have to be prayed up to continue this fight. I want to say thank you for my sister from New York that sends me a prayer every morning from the House of Justice. She sends me a prayer every morning. She never met me, but she sends me a prayer every morning morning to say, I'm praying with you, sister. And I want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And have a blessed and wonderful day. Go out there and change the world, people.
All right. Thank you, Sister Simmons. You know, brothers and sisters, we, in the midst of the pandemic, we were gripped with more police violence and the killing of George Floyd, and this nation obviously has been glued to the trial that is happening. And in the midst of that, you had two more situations, the killing of Devontae Clark and Adam Toledo. And we were really honored this week to have with us as part of our convention the mothers of the movement who have come to symbolize all of those mothers who have lost kids, mainly to police violence. And so we really want to thank Gwen Carr, Gwen Carr, of course, the mother of Eric Garner, Savette Clark, the mother of Stephon Clark, Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, and Leslie McSpadden, the mother of Michael Brown. All have stayed in the movement to continue the work to try, in the most recent situation, to make sure that this Congress passes the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act so we can begin to hold police accountable in the way that they should be when they violate the constitutional rights of the citizens of this nation. Right now, brothers and sisters, Dr. October Huntley, she's with the Irvington, New Jersey chapter of National Action Network.
Hello, my name is Dr. October Huntley, and I bring you greetings from the Irvington chapter of New Jersey National Action Network. Something took place yesterday when we had our chapter meeting, and I was totally caught off guard when Reverend Toon made the announcement that Irvington chapter of the National Action Network received the National Action Network 2021 Chapter Award. And I just want to say, as president, my organization is no such thing as I and we. It took the whole entire team in order to receive that award. Why do we receive the award? Because my chapter is about action. Last year, something took place around this time that we were not expecting to happen, and that was the pandemic, and everything was shut down. But let me tell you something. One thing that didn't shut down was my chapter. We sprung into action. We galvanized. We distribute food. We went to the senior buildings to make sure that they received masks, and also we distribute food to the entire township. And I actually have hold a unique position that I don't even know people know about. But I'm also the councilwoman at large for the township. So I'm able to work with the mayor, with the council, and with the National Action Network. We all work cohesively for the same mission. And that's to make sure that everyone is safe and that we have a clean township. So I just want to say to the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, thank you so much for creating this platform where we can actually participate and continue out your vision. Thank you.
All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to go all the way up to the Canadian border where you find Buffalo and Niagara, New York, and their chapter leader, Janique Curry.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings on behalf of our chapter in Buffalo, Niagara. Our president is Reverend Dr. James Lewis, and I am honored to be here to be a part of the National Action Network. I give honor to the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, our chairman, Dr. Franklin Richardson, and all that participate and all that are here to be a part of the National Action Network. This has been a fantastic convention this week. Although it was virtual the first time, it looked fantastic, it was fantastic, and I was happy to be a part of it. Up in Buffalo, we're doing a lot of work as well to continue to fight against COVID. We have been fighting against COVID by making sure that we are delivering food as well to many of our neighbors and friends with our partners. We partner with our Stop the Violence organizations, Back to Basic, and all the others that are continuing to be out there daily in the streets serving food. I'm happy to say that in the tradition of Mr. Hardy, the wonderful tradition of Mr. Hardy, we hosted our very first legal night during Black History Month. Our attorney, Rashid McDuffie, is out here with me today, and we are so happy that we were able to do that. And now that we have had some new legislation in New York, our next legal night is going to focus on making sure that we expunge the records of those who have been convicted improperly. So those are some of the things that we're working on in Buffalo, Niagara. We're pleased to be here. It is my great honor to work with Dr. Reverend Divez Toon as part of the National Field Team. I cannot say that that experience has not been the experience of my life. I honor him. I thank him. I thank Evangelist Regina Hunt, McCurry, and I also want to give honor to, we lost her this year, Reverend Mother Hunt, but the work will continue, and I thank you for all that we do here.
All right, going back to Columbia, South Carolina, and our dear sister, Tiffany James.
Good morning. No justice? No justice? Good morning. I am Tiffany James, and I bring you greetings from the Columbia, South Carolina chapter of National Action Network. I would like to thank the Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton and Chairman Richardson for giving us this space virtually and in person, social distance in person. So I give thanks for that opportunity. I also like to give thanks to my mentor, Reverend Rivers, and to Trudy Lucas and Reverend Toon. They keep me on my toes. So I like to thank them for the support that they give me and for always being there for me whenever I reach out. So thank you for that. So in Columbia, South Carolina, well, first, I would like to talk about this convention and how it's been such a wonderful experience. It's different from previous years, but I still had a wonderful time seeing my members in the movement, my sisters and brothers in the movement. But you know, one thing really stuck with me, and I was talking to Dominique the other day, and I said, Dominique, when you said what your father told you, that stuck with me, and I'm going to take that wherever I go, in whatever room I'm in. And what he said to her was, you cannot be big and small at the same time, right? And I'm like, you know what? That is right, because I serve God. And if I serve God, I can't be showing up small, I gotta show up big, right? You can't serve God and mammon, right? Right, so I serve God, and so I'm gonna show up big. So that's why I'm here in front of you all tonight. But in Columbia, South Carolina, we're doing some great things right now. We are working on the COVID-19 response in our neighborhood by educating our communities about the virus, the variant, and the vaccine. Because our community, as you all know, we're the hardest hit from COVID-19, and we are the ones that don't have the access to the vaccines. We're the ones who don't have the education. So what we do, we get scientists from Harvard University, from all over the world to zoom in and talk to churches, to talk to neighborhood leaders, to talk to school leaders, to talk to people within the neighborhood and bringing the information straight to them so they can be comfortable to take the vaccine. So that's one of the things that our chapter is involved in, but a huge victory happened on February 4th for the state of South Carolina, and our chapter was involved with that, and that was the South Carolina Department of Transportation. They passed the Complete Streets bill, a complete streets policy that we've been working on and advocating for throughout the state of South Carolina for 2 years. And you may say, well, you know, what does that got to do with justice? That has a lot to do with justice. Black people in South Carolina make up 27% of the population, but we also make up 46% of the injuries and fatalities due to being a pedestrian. So this is a Black Lives Matter issue, right? And Black Lives Matter, it doesn't just matter after the police kill us. It matters while we're here, while we're alive. So we have to look at the quality of life that we have while we're here on this earth. And the Complete Streets bring that, because it is going to our neighborhoods, prioritizing our neighborhoods to put sidewalks in place so people will not die when they're walking to the bus stop or walking to just enjoy their neighborhood. It puts lighting in place when people get off work late and there's not lighting, so they're getting hit by the car. And it also helps out with walking while black, because people get pulled over for jaywalking, right? But if you don't have any sidewalks, like if you don't have anything to aid in your mobility, you're just walking just to get where you're going, right? So it just helps out so much with you know, the criminalization of walking, and also it helps out with our quality of life overall. So that was a major win for us. The policy passed on February 4th, which is Transit Equity Day, because of Rosa Parks. So thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving me this space to share our victories from Columbia, South Carolina. And I look forward to working with you all and being in this space with you again. Thank you.
All right, brothers and sisters, we have had a long-term leader down in South Jersey in our Atlantic City chapter there. He's the leader there, and we have had so many actions there, including closing down the boardwalk a few times and being very involved in a number of other actions. One of them involved misconduct that was happening at a firehouse. And Steve Young, who's the leader there, Brother Steve Young, he went to the council meeting and he stood up and spoke, because these were allegedly situations where the firefighters were abusing young black women as they, and when I say young, like high school, as they went past the firehouse each day, they used to entice them in. And they tried to come after Steve for that, and it went to the court. And in the court, it went before the Superior Court judge, who just so happened to be the judge who wrote the script for Boardwalk Empire. And with regard to the substance of that case and the culpability of Stephen Young, the judge eventually said that the firefighters have a tail but no dog, and dismissed the action. Brother Stephen Young.
No justice? No justice? Thank you very much. First, I want to give honor to God. I want to say, Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, and I am present for peace and shalom to everyone. First, I want to say, Reverend Dr., the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, if it wasn't for that man keeping the peace in the street, these streets would be burnt down. Because he taught us the dream and the commitment of Dr. Martin Luther King and carrying it on. And I say to everyone, those jealous, envy, no good people that talks against him, come this way first. Because we're on the front line with these young people. He's on the front line with these families. He stays with these families. And if you're not showing up, shut up. And that's keeping it real, like Reverend Sharpton says. I want to say what's going on in New Jersey is a shame. We have a commitment from our young people. They said, listen, we're not only on the street, we're on the street beside them. We get locked up with them. And they don't see a lot of faith-based leaders. They don't see a lot of politicians, but they see the National Action Network. And we on the front line with them. But I tell you, when they said Black Lives Matter, and they was telling the governor that they wanted to paint Black Lives Matter on the boardwalk, well, they tried to sideswipe the truth, the children and the youth in the black community, and said, no, put it over here on another street. Now we find out they want to spend $36,000 of taxpayers' money to uplift Black Lives Matter off the street. What type of sickness is that? What type of government do we have that's so racist that they will spend $36,000 to erase the word. They're killing our young people. We have had over 10 police-involved shootings since George Floyd. And know what they say about all of them? They talk about the victim, like they do everywhere, but they don't talk about the officer that did it. And then they say they're investigating it. Because now we have a law that says the Attorney General office takes the investigation, not the county, not the internal affairs. Well, what good is that if we don't know what's going on? They do their press conferences and they say they're investigating. Well, how long are you going to investigate it? We have one after another and another and the same issues going on. So we say to the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, we're going to hold you accountable. We want access to our government. And we want transparency when this is over. Because we don't have transparency right now. And there's a lot of things going on from the monies that's been sent all over the country with this stimulus money. These corporate businesses are getting the money, but they're not trickling it down because they have what is called corporate welfare. But what about the small people? What about the housing? What about the education of our young people? So we must take that stand, and we must stay united to fight like we never fought before, because our lives depend on it, and definitely the legacy of our youth. So I say to all the young people, hold tight. Don't get violent. Keep the peace, because help is on the way. I'm Steve Young. No justice, no peace.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen Young. Right now, brothers and sisters, we're going to go back to the soul of New York and the village of Harlem, for our senator represents the 30th Senatorial District in Harlem. He represents all of us, the House of Justice included, Senator Brian Benjamin.
Thank you much, Reverend Hardy. I want to thank the Reverend Al Sharpton for keeping us uplifted. In this moment, we're having a virtual convention, which is really a hybrid convention from what I can tell. So I want to thank Reverend Al Sharpton for continuing to being on the fight. I'll be brief this morning. I come with a heavy heart. I know many of you have a heavy heart. We are continuing to grapple with the issue of the police culture in this country. And, I felt great when we passed the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act in New York State that I sponsored, because it was the first bill in the history of New York that will hold police accountable for choking someone to death. And I was glad for us to do that. But it is clear, it is clear that there is so much more left to do. And one of the things that is on my mind, and I'm going to be focusing on for the next few months, so I'll be telling you more about this as we move forward, is I want to start spending some more time on the issue of the police accomplice. As many of us know, if you are a young man or a young woman and you are accompanying someone who commits a crime, burglar, murder, rape, if you're an accomplice as a citizen, you do time too. If there's a bank robbery and you're the getaway driver, you can't say, well, I was the getaway driver, I didn't take the money out of the bank, so don't arrest me. You're getting arrested too because you were an accomplice. But somehow in this country, you can be an accomplice as a police officer and you somehow are free from scrutiny. I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples and I'll take my seat. I want to talk about this issue in Virginia with the young Army officer who was just driving his car to get some gas, and there was a cop, Officer Gutierrez, I will not forget this man's name, who treated him awfully disrespectful and said to him, get out the car. He had his hands out. He couldn't open the door. He proceeded to abuse him, pepper sprayed him. And all the young man was asking is, why are you stopping me? I'm a police officer. I mean, I represent this country. He had on his military fatigues. That officer didn't care, yanked him out the car, threw him on the floor. And I kept saying to myself, what was the second officer doing just watching this whole thing happen? Why didn't that officer say, you know what, hey, calm down. We're going a little, it's a little too much. Didn't do it. But yet, we're supposed to accept that kind of behavior? Absolutely not. So I'm going to be looking very closely at the laws in the state so that we can hold not just the officers accountable. When you kill someone, you choke someone to death, you shoot someone with a gun, but you quote unquote thought it was a taser, though you've been on the workforce for 26 years, and you should know the difference between a yellow taser and a black firearm. You should know the difference between your right and your left. If you are a right-handed person, that means your taser is on your left hand. I mean, this is in their manual. So how is it that you somehow missed the fact that you used your dominant hand to pull out a firearm and not your non-dominant hand, but then you said taser, taser, taser? At some point you would say, oh, wait a minute, this is not my taser. Oh, oops, let me put this back. Let me actually get out my real taser. Plastic versus metal. Listen, we are being treated awfully in this country, and enough is enough. But not only do we need to get after the officers who are committing these acts, the people who abet them, the officers who are accomplices and standing by, they need to be taken to a task as well. We're going to have the same set of rules for everybody. If that's the set of rules for the citizens, it's a set of the rules for police officers as well, and we're going to get it done in the state of New York. Thank you very much.
All right. Senator Brian Benjamin, thank you so much. Right now, brothers and sisters, we are pleased to have for our inspirational word today the Reverend Johnny Green. He's the pastor of Mount Nebo Baptist Church in the village of Harlem. He's also a board member of National Action Network. Let's welcome him.
No justice, no justice. Amen. To Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, our president and founder, and Dr. Debbie Franklin Richardson, our chairman of the board, and all of our national board members, and all of the NAN family, we greet you today in the joy of Jesus Christ, and we thank God for this privilege to share with you this devotional message. In the 16th, 17th, and 18th chapter of the Old Testament book of 1 Kings, we get a few snapshots of some characters of the Bible who represent a sad time for the nation of Israel. When we canvass chapter 16 of 1 Kings, we see a succession of kings that came to the throne, they came to power, they came to positions of leadership and prominence, but they were not led by God. These leaders, many of them were what we call and label wicked kings who led the people down the path of sin and destruction. These leaders were leaders who did not obey the laws of God. These leaders were leaders who did not care very much about representing the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At the time of our text in chapter 18, we see where a king by the name of Ahab has joined forces with his wicked wife, and they have been killing off the voices that spoke truth to power. they had been taking the lives of the courageous prophets, those who stood up against injustice and unrighteousness. But in the 17th chapter of 1 Kings, we see a prophet by the name of Elijah. And Elijah is God's prophet. He's fearless, he's bold, he's audacious, he is a man of much courage. And when we look at the call of Elijah, it is a call out of obscurity. And the first thing that I want to submit to you today is that oftentimes the people that God uses to bring about change and to usher in periods of transformation are people who do not have noted resumes or noted curriculum vitae, or they do not have an impressive dossier. They do not have a resume that's littered with academical achievements. Such was the case of Elijah. God calls him out of obscurity. And when we really want to know about the upbringing of Elijah, all we have in verse 1 of chapter 17 is Elijah the Tishbite. And that proves to us that you do not have to have an impressive resume. You do not have to have an impressive dossier, impressive curriculum vitae to be used by God. Oftentimes, God uses those the greatest who he finds in obscurity. So we see the call of Elijah. But then we see the causes of Elijah. Elijah had a cause, and those who are tapped by destiny, those who are called, Dr. Rivers, by God, often understand that there is a cause. And one of the things that I appreciate most about this civil rights organization that we know as the National Action Network, for the last 30 years, this organization has found causes that led to transformation in society and in the communities in which we live. Elijah understood the cause. He understood that the people were not walking in sync with God. He understood that there were political power brokers who did not care anything about justice or equality. He understood that there was a marginalized people and there was a disenfranchised people, and he had to speak truth to power. So we see the call of Elijah. It's one of obscurity. We see that Elijah is a prophet who understands the causes of the day. But then we see the courage. In chapter 18, we see the courage of Elijah. Elijah was not timid. Elijah was not afraid of Ahab. He was not intimidated by Jezebel. He was not intimidated by the things that were happening that were not only ungodly, but they were unrighteous. And Elijah confronted Ahab. And we're living in a day and time where we have to confront systemic evil. We're living in a day and time where we have to confront organized religion that's been poisoned and polluted, sometimes by preachers and clergy persons, such as we have witnessed with the evangelical right. Those who have partnered with the poisonous politicians like Trump, who spreads the evil of Trumpism. Elijah stood up. And you remember the prophet Obadiah. He, along with Ahab, was looking for grass to feed the cows and the mules. And he encountered this courageous prophet by the name of Elijah. And Elijah said, "You go tell Ahab that I'm ready to meet with him." It took courage on the part of Elijah to to call for this meeting. It took courage on the part of Elijah to speak truth to power, and it's going to take courageous voices today in our day and time to speak truth to power and to address systemic evil, police brutality, police misconduct, the killing of black and brown bodies all over the length and breadth of this nation. Like Elijah, we must stand up and voice God's side. We must stand up and we must say to the powers to be that be, no justice, no peace. But not only do we see the call of Elijah 1 out of obscurity, not only do we see the causes that he represented in chapter 16, 17, and 18 of 1 Kings, not only do we see the courage of this prophet, but we see that this prophet had to deal with unavoidable conflict. There comes a point in time, my sisters and brothers and members of our Nan family, when we cannot avoid conflict. There comes a time where we must not consider the risk or the cost or personal loss, but we must be willing to say when we are called out as troublemakers. You remember that Ahab, when he encountered Elijah, he asked, "Are you the one that troubleth Israel?" And Elijah's response was, "I am not the one that's troubling Israel, but you are the one that's causing the trouble." Oftentimes there's an identity problem with identifying the real culprit, the real individuals who are behind the injustice and the unrighteousness. And so we must be willing to stand up. We must be willing to call for confrontation. We must be willing to go to Mount Carmel and call for a showdown. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Reverend Dr. Johnny Green, last but not least and very brief, is our Vice President for the New York City chapter, Dr. Alvin Ponder.
Thank you, Attorney Hardy. I will be brief. What a great way to follow a great preacher, Reverend Green. Before him, listeners and viewers, you got a bird's eye view of the structure of perhaps the most effective civil rights organization in this nation. You had a good view of the infrastructure of one of the greatest organizations ever in this country. And our organization is built on committees. It is committee-based. And I'm charged with telling you a little bit about the flagship chapter, the New York City chapter, and the 19 committees that we have. If I can briefly run through some of the things that these great committees are doing, some of the great work. We have a political action committee chaired by the board member, Dawn Jones, that has led the effort in voting education and registration. Ranked choice voting is now taking a prominent role in electing our officials. Coming up with an election in New York City. The primary is in June. We have a education committee chaired by Chaplain Sandra Mitchell, building relationships with institutions of higher education in an effort to decolonize education, black and brown committees. Let me say parenthetically, I heard somebody talking about resumes. I'm actually a retired professor of biology, and I serve on the education committee. I actually hold an MD degree. I'm a social activist doctor, and I've been able to use that heading up the HIV/AIDS committee. We have a deaf committee chaired by Chris Dudley, and there are many other committees, including the HIV/AIDS committee, the Second Chance committee, the Women's Auxiliary, the all-important Crisis Task Force. And let me say that we've enjoyed this conference, and we've learned a lot. Thank you very much, Attorney Hardy.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Alvin Ponders. Brothers